Hello. So, one more video for the man in the orange jerkin, or jacket. I'm just kidding. I'm in George Street in Edinburgh, our glorious capital. And we're parallel to Princess Street, which is the main street in Edinburgh. So this is just a one street above it. One street and an alleyway above it called Rose Street, which is like the bar crawl area between, just down that way basically. Anyway, question in everybody's mind is, well, might not be, but I'm just gonna suggest that question. Why, if Scotland is a sovereign country, because in our constitution, which yes, we actually have one, and England doesn't, the UK doesn't, in our constitution it states that we are sovereign people. In other words, we don't even have to answer to our crown, which, by the way, as I mentioned in a previous video, due to the Plantagenet scandal of the 1500, I think it might be. Anyway, due to that scandal, we actually, the royal family we have, they merged and became the royal family of our country too. So we have a kind of joint kingdom in some ways, but it's illegitimate. Therefore, it's actually illegitimate for Scotland. So there's no reason we shouldn't drop the monarchy. But even besides that, would we even have to? And the answer is a big fat resounding no. Our government could declare independence at any point in time, and the question is why don't they do it? And this is about it's all about diplomacy, isn't it? They've got to still work with America. If England comes along and says, oh, you're doing something bad, and they sell an idea to America that, like, well, you know, if Scotland goes independent, where are you going to put your nuclear missiles that are all based in Scotland as a target on our backs? And then America would push and then start to say that we're a fascist country, and you know, the rest is kind of obvious, even though we've got a higher mandate for our government than any American government or any English government in the history of both countries, right? More people voted for the SNP, which is the party of independence, among others. There's 5 other parties, I think, in total, the Scottish Socialist Party and the Greens being the 2 other bigger ones, but the SNP being the biggest. Although the media doesn't tell you that, they tell you it's just, oh, you know, it's just the SNP. That's the Wallace Monument. Oh, sorry, the Scott Monument behind us. Beautiful buildings here in Edinburgh. When you got the Edinburgh Festival, the second biggest comedy festival in the world, the place really just becomes amazing. But the reason why we don't declare independence, why we can't, well, we can. But there's the media would have you believe that it's because Boris Johnson hasn't given us permission yet. Daddy, can I use my pocket money to buy something? You know, it's like that. They have absolutely no say in what we do, and they definitely have no say in what the people do, because we are protected by a constitution which they are not, which says we are all sovereign, and we can actually kick our leaders out if we want. We can kick our monarchy out if we want. We can do all these things, and given the fact that they have an 80% majority, and directly after independence last time, out of the 59 seats that Scotland's allowed, we actually, the SNP, got 56 out of the 59 seats. And that's a clear mandate right there. That was in 2015 when they had the general election. So, you know, when you look at one of these things, it's not like the other. The only thing that stands out like dog's balls from all the polls and all the other elections and referendums that have taken place, the only one that stands out like dog's balls is the IndyRef, because the result was at least a 20% drift. And anyone who's a statistician doing probability and statistics would look at that and say, hang on, something's not right here. There has to be a margin of error. That margin of error is the margin of corruption. That was the margin of propaganda. And it's the reason that we're not independent yet, and I've spent another 5 years giving money over to England. Here's 40% of our money, thank you very much. And also the right to tell us what to do in many aspects. What the idiots who allowed themselves to be fooled, because they are idiots. There's two camps of people who vote against the independence of their own country, especially this country. Those are, actually there's three. One is just a blatant traitor, a self-serving traitor like George Galloway, right? The other is someone who, like my cousin Philip, it's nostalgia. His family grew up in a certain part of Scotland that is more a Tory area, and they're brought up to worship the English in a different way, whereas the other people are brought up to believe that English are better than us, that we're just scum. His part of Scotland are brought up to believe that yes, English are still better than us, but we're not scum, but that's only because we allow our neighbours to run our country, right? So my cousin lives in Japan, of course, directly after voting for independence. Fuck you, Philip. I hate it. When we talk about this topic, I love you, but I hate you. I hang out with him in Japan quite a lot. I go snowboarding out there, and there's only been a few discussions we've had about this because we just end up arguing. The people who vote against independence, they were given arguments such as, if you vote independence, you will be thrown out of the EU. This, being in the UK, secures your place in the EU. Well, that was a lie, because the very next 2 years later, England voted for all of us to leave. Northern Ireland voted to stay, so did Scotland, and a much, much higher percentage, 68% I believe it was, voted to stay in the EU. Only 55% were threatened and scared into voting against independence, right? So that's only a 5% difference, whereas the difference on the other side is 18%. So you would say that wouldn't one democratic act outpace or outdo the other? And the answer is yes, it does. Because with us choosing to be in the EU, more of us choose to be in the EU than to be in the UK, which means that is why the referendum needs to be revisited. Now, referendums are meant to happen more frequently than elections. Elections happen every 4 to 5 years, depending where you live around the world. So these idiots who are saying that it's once in a generation, because some SNP people said that at the time, trying to get people to go out and vote, because we got denied a vote in 1979 where we voted 62.8% and it was denied, 52.8% and it was denied. The reason that was denied is because there is no democracy in our country, because England tells us what to do. It's only now that because Scotland's got its own parliament, we're waking up to the laws that we actually have in place, because we have our own legal system. Back then that wasn't legal. We should have been breaking free back then, right? So we've had 30 more years or 40 more years of England plundering our resources and spending it, making their country better while they drive ours into the mud, right? That is what has been happening. Now, this is not opinion. You know, there's things you look and someone gets punched in the face. Oh, you know, I think he actually got kicked in the face. Well, the video evidence shows the guy's hand going to his face, you know. I don't buy this argument when it's all up into interpretation. Some things are the way they are, right? One other thing that was the way it is we got told there was this thing called Devo Max. This was going to happen. Devolution Maximus. In other words, we were going to get more powers, but we're still going to stay in the Union. It never happened. The whole thing was a lie, but that was written down. Scotland, the SNP saying this is a once in a generation thing, was only just it's an observation of something that was said. It was something that was written in the white paper, but was something that was not in any agreements. And it's something that also becomes null and void when you take, for example, that the democratic vote of our country, and we do have a democratic, unlike England, we do actually have a democratic country trying to operate within a fascist oligarchical structure, right? A succession of English and international corporations, and probably even Scottish corporations, that keep a stranglehold on the UK. Just like how America's controlled by the corporations, Britain's kind of controlled by corporations and old money, right? The best thing for England is also Scottish independence, because once the English people who are being robbed in places like Manchester and Liverpool that aren't getting enough money put into them to or infrastructure spending, they will start to demand more. And the problem is England doesn't have anything more to give, because it's a very poor country resource-wise. But it's a rich country in the fact that it's diversity. No, that it has a lot of people. So there's people who are going to come up with ideas. Everyone's fairly close, so cities like London function well. They could become a knowledge-based economy. They've got a lot of competition, but they could become better at that. And in time become a country that can stand on its own 2 feet without the help of Scottish money funding their country from underneath or behind the scenes, where the people don't get to appreciate. Nothing's worse than actually, well, it's kind of like these movie stars. Imagine you took the Hollywood movie stars and said, all the donations you're giving, you're not allowed to talk about them. How many of the donations do you think would be cut? Well, it's the same thing as Scotland. It donates money to England on an annual basis, constantly over the last 320 years, thereabouts. And it doesn't get to even talk about it. Actually, inversely, we get told that we are funded by them. That's the thing that I can't take. I can handle not getting to skite about our humanitarian aid to England, but for that to be turned around and thrown in our face and like, oh, look at you scumbags, if it wasn't for us, that is what myself and most normal-minded Scots cannot take, right? And won't accept. So we're in a case right now where the Scottish government could and should, I believe, at this stage, declare independence, because they have a mandate to do it, multiple mandates, because they've been voted in more than once now. Last time 56 out of 59 seats, this time an 80% vote for the Scottish National Party. What else? So they could declare at any stage. But what I think they're trying to do is get the EU on their side, get the UN on their side, remembering that Kosovo, see, this is the thing. England and America try to destroy other empires. They try to destroy any country that gets powerful. You've seen this in Iran, you've seen this in Syria, you've seen it in Libya. Those countries all had one thing in common. They had great wealth. That's why they're not in, they had great wealth, and they also had infrastructure, and they were organized. Whereas the Central African Republic, they had resources, but and the same as the Democratic Republic of Congo, they can go and screw those countries because they've got great resources, but they don't actually have any structure. Or they're going through major problems, like Venezuela. It's going through problems. It's got the world's most democratic, you might not know this, the world's most democratic election system is in Venezuela, that prevents all this flip voting and stuff that happens in America and other non-democracies, right? But they won't tell you that in the news, right? They'll oh, look, he's in power. Well, he's in power because he got voted in power. Look, there's these people marching. There's people marching in our countries. It doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean the majority. Maybe they are right. In some cases, they are the majority, like when they march here in Scotland. They are the majority. The reason why you know that Scottish independence mindset is a majority is because it's logical. You cannot have that many people with cognitive dissonance. It just doesn't happen. But you can have people that have, oh, my grandfather fought in the war, blah, 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 blah. These are the roots that keep us tugged in by some people. The other one is just sheer stupidity. And these are the ones that the simple propaganda, like in America, yeah man, these colors don't run. That same kind of propaganda that's aimed at low IQ. I'm talking below 90 IQ. There's different propaganda for different people. It's all around you. If you just look, you take a step back, especially when you travel more, you start to say, hang on, that campaign looks very similar to this campaign that I saw in Ecuador. This campaign looks, you know what I mean? You can start to notice these similarities. Why? They're using the same marketing companies. That's why. They come up with the same ideas. Oh, Hillary Clinton paid whatever crowd they are. I can't remember that crowd. Damn it, it was on the edge of my tongue and it's left. But you're seeing people using, like even Trump using the same crowd that Hillary used. Which is just insane because she lost against them. And even the same hacking companies, right? So I think they're just playing it comfortable. I hope they're not playing it wrong, like the old Scottish way, like, oh, you know, it'll be fine, it'll go there. And well, they wouldn't do that because we wouldn't do that because we're nice people. No, they're not nice people. The worst people in our country are not nice people. So what we need to get to in Scotland is baby steps. Baby step 1, get rid of the parasite that's choking our country off, and let them be free as a result from it as well. Let the English people be better off because they will demand more. They'll demand basically these systems improve in their country. They become more lean instead of wasteful, and their country in time will improve. And the thing is, that would benefit Scotland too, because who wants a despot run country next door? Nobody does. It doesn't help us if England's poor. They're one of our main trading partners. We can survive without them, but they're one of our main trading partners. They need our energy, whether it be fuel, whether it be gas, whether it be electricity. They need that, but one day, I mean, England are doing very well. I spoke of the knowledge-based economy. England are making lots of inroads right now in the nuclear fusion. This is the clean nuclear energy. They could be self-sufficient if they. I mean, they've got to the stage now. They've cracked this. It'll be another 10 years before they actually have the power stations. So they probably suck off Scotland a little bit longer to keep things going, or just pay their way and actually pay Scotland. In the meantime, Scotland can actually recoup some of the trillions of pounds that it's lost in the last 40 years especially, to build the country to what it should have been if it had not been stifled and hindered by our parasitic neighbour, right? So part of doing that is maybe discourse dialogue with the EU, the UN, to make sure that, hey, if we declare independence like Kosovo did, the reason I'm mentioning Kosovo is because I was going to start saying before, England and America, they like to disturb other countries that are doing well. Whether it be, that's why Russia's the enemy, the eternal enemy. Russia's got the biggest country in the world. They don't need more land, but apparently they do. Apparently they just want to take your backyard, man. They want to take your freedoms, man. Yes, marketing to morons. But no, Russia don't want to do that. They want to run their own country. I mean, they're just like any country does. They want to run its own affairs. Some countries may want to take a little bit of sliver, but there are countries that haven't got very much. I live in Slovenia. They had a big section of land taken by Croatia because it was given to them by the Nazis. That should be reversed. Why is it not reversed? Because Britain don't care about things like that, as long as it keeps turmoil in the region. They wanted Yugoslavia to be less powerful. If you go all over Yugoslavia, you'll find that Tito was a very liked man, right? Not according to our governments. No. No, everyone hated him. So let's look at the truthful side, because I've been there. I actually lived there. Our narrative is a lie, right? So why would England's UK government have said Kosovo should be independent? They basically wrote in laws that allowed Kosovo to declare their independence, and yet they have far less a case for doing so than Scotland, which is actually supposedly already an independent country because it's a sovereign country. It just belongs to a union. You wouldn't say that Germany's not independent, would you? And they're part of the EU. You wouldn't say that France isn't independent, would you? No, of course not. So Scotland should actually be independent, but we allow these freaks to have more say in our country than we should. We've accepted too much, and it's gone on so long. It's a kind of smoke and mirrors effect where they're actually just lying to, no. It's like some guy walking up to you and go, sorry mate, you can't drive that. But it's my car. Yeah, no, but you mustn't know the rules around here. What happens is you've got to give your car to your neighbour every 2 days. Oh really? Oh yeah. Oh, this guy's gullible as hell. Oh my God, he's believing me. That is how Scotland is ruled by England. Complete smoke and mirrors and collective gullibility, stupidity, naivety, whatever you want to call it. So we can do a lot more than we are doing, but remember that England loves and America loves to destabilize countries that might be powerful. And when it comes to America, especially countries that are socialist, like Scotland. Scotland, by the way, is a socialist country. Now, there are no truly socialist countries left. I don't even think you could. I've got people that work with me from Vietnam, for example. That's meant to be still socialist or communist, and yet they still work with us. It's still got capitalism. There is no such thing as a purely socialist country. Not anymore, anyway. You still have some communist countries, truly communist, like North Korea, but even then they've got aspects of capitalism. They are happening. They've got hacker groups, for example, that are some of the best in the world working for whoever. So you can't really get, in this day and age, you cannot get just capitalist. America's not capitalist, it's crony capitalist, which means effectively corporate socialism. That's where taxes get handed over like gifts to corporations, where markets are protected instead of being free market. Competitive free market is what capitalism is. America does not have this, and Britain to a lesser degree doesn't have it either, but it's not as bad as America. It's protectionism. Australia, badly protectionist. New Zealand, badly protectionist. So I think what they're doing is trying to get all the things and ducks in a row and make sure the UN's not going to have a problem with it, make sure NATO's not going to have a problem with it, because remember, they lose their missile launching bases because Scotland does not want nuclear weapons. We never have. We didn't want nuclear power either. You know why? We don't need it. We create over twice as much power than we require. But that's because England requires a lot of power, doesn't it? So we've got to feed the beast. And so we definitely don't need nuclear power. Definitely don't need nuclear weapons because we're too small a country, and we're part of the EU, which if we pay into would protect us collectively anyway. So we do not need American, British bought nukes, so Scottish and English and Northern Irish and Wales bought nukes and submarines, painting a target on our back, and also being the risk of nuclear disaster with that and the power stations. We don't need any of that. This is all for England's ego. Not need, because let's face it, they can't take on Russia if Russia decided to go against them. Russia doesn't want their crappy little country, right? But pretending that they do, it's like some woman walking down the road like, oh, look at my ass, I got some damn sexy ass, damn, look at that booty, and nobody's paying her attention, but she thinks she looks hot as shit. That is the delusions of grandeur that you have in England right now, from their, well, right now for a long time. They really believe they're still the empire that they're not, and the empire that they were was a parasitic empire. And Scotland did. A lot of the buildings that you have in Glasgow from the tobacco industry, tobacco trade, tea trade, we shared in some of that plunder. Not us as a country, but certain people who, as far as I'm concerned, I'd be happy if they hang from the rafters, you know, because they should be brought to justice, a lot of these people, right? Modern day, we need to do what was done in the French Revolution, a lot worse. The mistakes made during the when the Americans took on the Japanese was not killing the emperor. Let's not make that same mistake. Let's make sure that we purge these people from existence. Make sure that their families don't get a gravy train that came from ill-gotten gains. Strip them of these resources. That's what needs to happen. I know that sounds revolutionary and socialist, but you need these resets every now and then, because what happened in the run-up to this was fascism, was corporate fascism that created this. And the same way that you, it needs to be short and sharp and quickly administered. And the same way that you have some countries saying positive discrimination, I don't agree with it, but I think for a short space of time, giving land back, so a lot of the land that's been seized here by basically devaluing everything in Scotland and allowing our neighbouring country to make maximum money off of industries such as the fake banking sector, the energy sector that comes from our country anyway, and then to spend that money up here, in other words, the ownership of us, just like when China has gone around the world recently, printing money at will, buying property all over the world. What's happened? Vancouver prices are unrealistic, Auckland, Sydney, you cannot get in the property market if you're a normal person there, right? And what happens then? Well, that just feeds more into the banking system, seizing properties. When the economy takes a downturn, more properties get seized for a higher value, therefore people lose all the capital they put in. This is the robber barons' modus operandi. It's the way they work. This is how they garnish money from people. This is the Rothschild banking system. Yes, I'm mentioning that name. That's what it is all around the world. This is how it works. This is how it robs the people. And this is why the wealth divide grows every single year, right? Globally, America's becoming like India as far as the wealth disparity. The American dream is no longer attainable by at least 90% of Americans. It's not attainable. But people will still lie to you and say it is. I'm leaving it at that. That's the reasons why Scotland hasn't declared independence yet. It's because we need to play this very, very safe. There are other powers that we have. We are just little insects too. But we all as many insects around the world form part of an unwilling collaboration of some of these giants. And if our interests go against the American interests, Trump will do whatever it takes to protect US interests. If US interests say flatten Scotland, Trump will flatten Scotland, or any other. Obama would have as well. I mean, he didn't do any good around the world, despite the propaganda, the left-right propaganda, which means if you don't like Trump, you must like Obama. They're both fuds. All right, see ya.